So it was a tough. That was just the start of it, and then they start. You got all these nurses and stuff, and they got flashlights, and they're looking in your eye, and oh yeah, his eyes look a little jaundiced, and,
It's starting to look
and I'm like,
yellow and everything.
I didn't ever notice that.
This is Rock Bottom with Ryan. No sugarcoating, no filters. The pain, the chaos, the truth. No bullshit. Just recovery.
Sober Strong apparel isn't just lifestyle wear, it's battle gear. We rep sobriety like a badge of honor, and every piece you throw on says you're part of the crew that doesn't back down. Every order fuels recovery with 10% donated to treatment facilities. Hit SoberStrongApparel.com and use code ROCKBOTTOM at checkout for 10% off. Stay sober, stay true, rep the crew.
All right, welcome to another episode of Rock Bottom with Ryan. Co-host Rachel today is not here, but I'm here with Jacob as our guest today. He's Feel Sober Good on Instagram. Jacob, would you like to introduce yourself and tell us where you're from, a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, sure. My name is Jacob Schulze, and I'm from Wisconsin, and I am my story is really about alcohol dependence that I came into, and then which eventually led to liver cirrhosis, and just kind of my journey of recovering from that, and then finding out that how great sobriety is in the process of recovery, and having using functional medicine and some alternative things to kind of help heal my liver without a transplant. And so that's a little bit of kind of a backstory of my in a nutshell.
Awesome. I like it. And I'm going to definitely want to hear more about a lot of what you've been doing to take care of your liver as far as aftercare. But before that, can you kind of go into a little bit of what your childhood was like and kind of how you got into drinking in the first place and how it evolved into what you'd consider a problem and where you needed to stop?
Yeah, sure. I think my story is not that unusual, as far as like drinking is concerned. I had a good upbringing. And so, you have those when you're young, you're experimenting with, alcohol. As a teenager, you think it's cool to have a beer or some wine or something like that. It wasn't like I lived in a, home where there was a lot of drug use or alcohol use and stuff like that. It was just, it just wasn't looked down upon or good or bad, really. It just was, I didn't see it as a bad thing. I saw it as something that was fun. And so that was pretty much because I didn't really have any negative examples with regards to being bad. And so, as you get through that stage, you get to, that independent stage where you maybe get some freedom, you're out on your own. And that's when you start to drink heavier, maybe on some weekends or some partying with some buddies or something like that. And, most of it is harmless. We're just, you're just at your apartment but at the time, you're still under 21 and stuff like that. So there was a few moments where like got a little rowdy and so you gotta worry about, getting caught at underage or something like that. But it wasn't like a major problem really at that point either. And then after the thing is when you're doing that, you're also sometimes aren't making the best choices. So usually you're young enough and you're not really supposed to be drinking. At least, that in my mind as what I was being taught and raised as that, you don't want to be doing that. So, but my point is you start to kind of level out a little bit. And so it was not out of control at that point either. So far the story is probably fairly boring, but
Not at all. No story is boring, honestly. Like, a lot of stories can be relatable to each other or comparable, but like every story is unique. And a couple of things you said already, it's like, it starts off social drinking and it evolves without you even really realizing it, how quickly it evolves. I noticed you're a Packer fan in the background. It's like, it reminds me of like, okay, well, when I was young, it was like drinking to tailgate for games and stuff. Just to sports and stuff like that. Like I would drink to go watch games or go to games and get drunk
Yep.
at the games. And it all
Yep.
starts off fun and games like that, you know, and then it just becomes where you're like, oh, I'm waking up in the morning and now I need a drink, you know. So it's
Exactly.
all important. So
Okay, good. Yeah, no, I mean, and that's kind of the point. That's kind of the point of what my story is in trying to find the relatability with someone who, this can happen to anyone. It doesn't, it can start out as harmless, and this can happen to anyone. And so, what would happen is kind of like what you described. You'd have those occasional, start day drinking and stuff like that. You kind of experiment with that a little bit, like have a Bloody Mary or something, and this feels pretty good, and it's not bad it doesn't feel too bad to start a little earlier.
well, like in Wisconsin, I've noticed with other guests that have been from Wisconsin, there's bars everywhere apparently. Like it's per capita bar on every block, it sounds like.
Pretty much, yeah. There's not a lot to do. There is a lot to do in Wisconsin, but it seems like that's a very common way to recreate is to go to the bar or drinking in general.
Yeah.
So, so what I guess what I became, and as I got 21, I actually got married at 21. So the drinking was just like, you'd have a few drinks here and there, and it wasn't out of control yet, but you start to experiment with it, and you start to see that, maybe there's a few weekends that you get a little carried away and you have too much, you don't feel that great the next day, and so, but you try to kind of hide that over and just move on. That just part of the deal if you drink too much. So you're not gonna, it doesn't become a huge problem. But what started to happen was as I got into, we had 3 beautiful daughters, and there's more responsibility as a parent, and more responsibility being married, obviously, and then with work, I was taking on more responsibility, in and with that, I kind of used it to kind of cope with some of that, and used alcohol to help me to, as a reward, maybe after a long day or that stress, or after we got the kids to bed. It's like I just want to relax, and then the other part of it is you start to think that in some ways I found that I thought I was more creative, or I was funnier, I was more fun, I was.
More witty.
Yeah, so like I was feeling like it was a positive thing, like this is more fun, and we have a good time, and I'm coming up with these good ideas like when I'm drinking. So like, man, I should maybe, bring work home and have some drinks and do some work there, because I'm more, I can relax, I can really free my mind a little bit. And I started getting these misconceptions about what it was doing for me, and so I was it got to a point where I was like having these drinks every night, and my wife was starting to question me a little bit, like, do you really need to drink every night? And why don't you try, like, taking some nights off and stuff like that?
Yeah.
And it wasn't something I was really excited about doing at the time, but I did try. I did try to, and man, I dreaded those days when I got home from work and I knew I couldn't have anything. At that point, it was just like I just wanted a couple drinks, but it was just like all those evenings were like, man, this isn't as relaxing as it was the last night when I could have some drinks, or man, I can't wait for Thursday to get around, or Friday, or whatever. Whenever I want to take like so many days off here.
Yeah. How many drinks do you think you were consuming, like, once it started to become a problem?
Once it started to become a problem, then it's hard to really keep track of the number, because I was sneaking so much, I mean, because I was trying to kind of keep it looking like it was still a couple drinks. And so then, you got your show drink, and then you maybe sneak for some shots or something like that you can get that extra kick.
Yeah.
And
remember
so
those
that,
days.
yeah, so that's when it started to be an issue, and then I was probably about 35. It was 2020, so I kind of started down this wrong path here. It was getting to pretty regular, like in my early 30s, and now I'm getting to 35 now. Since COVID hits, there's that. Just at the time, this was all new, so like it's so like, kind of the way the media portrayed it, it was quite terrifying at first, and so we didn't know what to expect. And at work, I'm an essential worker. I work in retail, and so um, we got to stay open, and so we got to figure out, okay, we're going to stay open. Then we got to figure out all these safety measures, and so there's these like daily meetings about this and how we're going to handle this, and then there's kickback because not everybody's really not the staff isn't really all buying into these new changes or liking them, or the customers aren't really liking them, and there's a lot of stress now, and plus you don't know like how bad is this going to be, or is everybody going to get like mad, like crazy sick, and we're all going to die, or what, I don't, the way it was portrayed at first, and so then you're locked down at home, and they kept liquor stores open. I have a post about that where it kind of makes light of that. Like, they locked down gyms and stuff like that, but
They
they left
kept
liquor
it.
stores open.
They kept that liquor available, and then there was a lot of alcoholics created because of the COVID and everything, the shutdown and all that. And it's kind of scary. And some people that drank casually became worse alcoholics from that. And there are people that were sober for years that relapsed. Like, it did a lot of damage. But I heard about some people, a few stories that are exceptions where people like use it as an opportunity to turn their life around. But for the most part, that whole shutdown seemed to be set up for the bad.
Yes. Yeah, I heard some too. Like some people said they started their journey like in 2020, like right during that time. Like, wow, that would have been the perfect time for me to start. I wish I would have, but
Oh,
but
yeah.
that was the time when it was, we were running on a skeleton crew, and every day the days we're just crazy busy because everyone is at home, and then they got the stimulus money and they're spending it and they're working on their house and they're not traveling, and so it's you get home and you are just beat, and so it's like I'm gonna stay up and just like have some drinks here, and then not eating very healthy because let me throw a pizza in here because I didn't really get to eat a lot and I'm starving, and so it just was it started me, it really progressed me to a tough spot there, and that's kind of where got to the point of 2023 where my life was on the line.
Wow. So what, towards like those last days before you decided to quit, what was that like? Were you waking up and like trying to get rid of withdrawals? Was it that bad, or was it mainly like you were just hearing from like, say, your wife and family and stuff where people starting to call you out? Like, what was the thing that really changed your mind? And I think health related reasons had something to do with that too.
Yeah, my sobriety journey started when I was in the ER, when it was life or death.
Same.
So you can relate, yeah. Um, and so I really didn't. At that point, it's funny how your mind thinks. Like your life's on the line, and like they're saying, you're probably never gonna, you're never gonna drink again. That's what they're pretty much telling you, And I'm like, oh man, no way. Like, I can't imagine that. That's like, and I'm like dying. Like, I mean, essentially, I'm not thinking in my head that I'm dying, but in reality, as things progressed here, as my symptoms were getting worse, it was like, wow, how much my mind was still thinking. And even as I was recovering and healing, I was still kind of holding out hope that maybe I could have some drinks in the future in moderation and try to bring it back under control. But it really started for me at that point because, I'm in the ER, and I'm getting the ascites in my stomach, and it was terrifying at that point when the doctors are.
What were they telling you exactly? Were they saying like, hey, you continue this another 30 days, you may not make it? Or how were they kind of communicating all that to you?
Well, they didn't really go to that point right away, but it was kind of like when I went in, I wasn't feeling real good, and the night before, like one of my daughters had made a joke about my stomach, kind of like, dad looks like he's pregnant, type of thing. They're young and they're just think it's funny, whatever. And so I got a beer belly. I'm thinking to myself, yeah, I know I need to lose a few pounds. And I remember my wife even kind of looking, she says, yeah, your stomach kind of looks a little funny.
Ooh, yeah, that
and then I'm,
bloated thing that happens, huh?
yeah. And, but she kind of just, didn't really look that closely because she didn't probably want to make me feel bad. And then I kind of started looking, I'm like, this is weird, but like, it's fine. It's fine, and got up, went to work the next day, and just, man, my stomach was just rock hard and not feeling, I felt really bloated, like that bloat, like it's that, it must be gas or something,
Yeah.
And so anyways, I talked to my dad, and he's like, you need to go see the doctor, like today, like get the on-call doctor and go get this checked out. Something ain't right here. And so I listened to him, and I, wasn't a big fan of going into the hospital really, but I did it, and it was good. I needed him to tell me that, like, you need to go, so
Yeah.
that was good. So that's one piece of advice. Sometimes, especially when it's somebody that, like,
Somebody you respect.
yes, and they
Little
tell you
tough
to,
love. Yeah.
yep, listen to them.
Yeah.
So I got in there, and that's when it was like, I realized, I tried to play it off, and I had been kind of hiding all this. And as soon as I get in there, you aren't hiding it from the doctors and the nurses. They've seen this before. They know what this is. And I mean, they were real kind about it, but you could tell by the questions they start asking you that, why do they keep asking me about how much I'm drinking and this and that, and then basically, I could just see the look on his face that he's like, we need to get you to the ER because your stomach is filling with fluids, and we need to get these fluids drained out, like, as soon as possible. And I was supposed to go on a work trip, like, in like 4 days from when I was seeing him. And I told him, I said, well, I have this work trip coming up. I got tickets and everything. I'm going to that. And he said, I think you need to cancel your work trip. And I'm like, really? And he's like, yeah, you do not want to be leaving the state right now. You need to take care of this right now. And so that was the starting point. And the hard part, I think, for me in that moment is, I live in a small community too. And this is where the stigma can really, and this is one of the reasons why I'm so open about it now, is because that stigma holds people back from getting the help they need. And I was too worried about what other people were going to think. And I was too worried about, I'm fairly well known in the community. And so, I know a lot of these doctors and nurses from customers, and they know me. And here I've been trying to hide this whole thing and thinking it's okay, that I'm going to be okay. Nothing like that's going to happen to me. And then to have them, and they were all so, like, respectful and not looking like at least they didn't make me feel like they were judging me, but you feel that way,
Yeah.
So it was a tough, that was just the start of it. And then they start, you got all these nurses and stuff, and they got flashlights, and they're looking in your eye, and, oh yeah, his eyes look a little jaundiced, and
It's starting to look
I'm
yellow
like,
and everything.
and I'm like, I didn't never notice that. Now, then I started really getting, um,
Concerned.
yellow, the belly, the bilirubin and stuff. So
Jeez. Yeah.
yeah, it was a humbling moment, and it was a very scary moment. And
And that was the
yeah,
last time you touched alcohol. What did you decide? Did you decide to go to treatment, or how did you go about that?
no, I had, when I did go home, um, they had my wife. Fortunately, I have a loving, supportive wife. I would have never got through this without it. And I'm so grateful for that. But she, got called and talked to her mom, and they get all the liquor out of the house, all the alcohol out of the house. So when I got home, there was no temptation, for that. And then the doctors had given me this pill, that kind of helped get me over the hump for those 14 days. And I didn't have any severe withdrawal, really, but the anxiety was what I was mostly worried about, because you get the anxiety and a little bit of the, the unsteadiness with your hands and stuff that I didn't really notice. I didn't notice all that as much until, there's a lot of things that you just kind of like play off, or,
When you're in the
you,
midst of your addiction, it's like everything just kind of, you just kind of keep thinking about the next drink. You're not really thinking about anything, what happens in between. But when I started to notice the last morning I drank, I was basically trying to put in my contacts and couldn't put them in. And then I was trying to go to the bathroom and I couldn't aim. And I was trying to simply take a shower, and it was like hard for me to even hold on to the shampoo. And I was like, this is like frustrating at this point, and I couldn't even drink my way out of it. So that's when I was like, I'm going to the hospital.
okay, sure. Yeah. And that's the best thing you could have done, because that's where you maybe started the detox or something like that, or.
Yeah. Detox for a few days, and then it spent another 4 days waiting. And then I decided while I was there, I just too many conversations with family and people close to me that I was just like, I'm going to go to treatment. I had told myself before I could do it on my own, but I realized this is like the 10th, 12th time I've tried to quit. I'm like, I got to do something different this time around. And I decided 45 days in treatment was only 45 days, either that or death someday. So I made that commitment, but I applaud anybody who can do it without treatment. But I know there's a lot of good success stories out there with or without treatment, with or without AA, but it's like whatever works for that individual. And me, I needed that extra step to take, So
Yeah, no, and that's so true. Path is a little different. I think had I not gotten as sick as I probably would have had to do something like what you did. I should have. I wish I would have. If I would have been more open and honest about it, maybe somebody would have said, "Hey, you need to go. Like, if this is what's going on, then you need like some help. Let's get you some help." And yet, you try to. What it might mean, like the thought of like having to quit forever. And
yeah,
I kept thinking, okay, maybe I can eventually I'll get it under control. Like
yeah,
this will
that's
work
what.
out. Like I'm just, there's always some reason why it's going to have to delay till tomorrow. But at some point
Exactly.
I'm going to deal with this.
Yeah,
And so you did the right thing by getting in there, and, and as many times as it takes, like if it took you 10 times or whatever you said, at least you were trying. If you wouldn't have started trying with try one,
yeah.
you might never got to 10.
Exactly. Everything is part of the process to get to that recovery, to get in recovery. It's like all those relapses, all those attempts to quit. I feel like I needed every single one so I could fail and pick myself back up again, and fail and pick myself back up. And finally, this time I picked myself up, and I'm about almost 14 months in, and I'm just kind of like, okay, I've figured out my program, figured out what's working, and I'm just kind of sticking to it. And this podcast has been a great help, talking to people like you and hearing stories that are relatable. It's it's all coming together, but sometimes it takes a few collapses and picking yourself up.
Yeah, for sure. Uh, um, yeah, that's great. You're on the right track of doing it, and it was at the point for me where I I guess I lost my train of thought there for a second, but what I wanted to get back to is what you're saying about this podcast. And so the AA, maybe that's what you need, or I think um, had I not had my health issue, I think I needed to do what you did. I needed to go to rehab. I needed but that would have been a tough one for me because of that stigma,
Mm-hmm.
that shame, that I
Yeah.
was really ashamed of that. And I couldn't, I thought, what are people going to think, And
Yeah, your
so
wife
it's
being
too.
like, "Oh, where's Jacob? Oh, he's in treatment. Oh, he's got 4 kids or three daughters or whatever." It's like, it's like we're always kind of dreading being that person that went to rehab, because it's like I'm probably back in the day. I was like telling myself when I would hear some of my friends going off to rehab, I'm like, "Oh, they fucked up. They couldn't control their drinking, but I can." But in reality, I was just as out of control, if not worse. And then once I got into treatment and was just around all these people in the same position, I was like, it's very humbling, but at the same time, it's like the longer I was there, the less ashamed I was, because I was like, you know what? I just needed this.
Yeah. And so then, like, whatever is working for you, because I would think, like, since I didn't go to rehab, you're with other people who are going through some stuff, and for me, what really helped me was the sober community, getting involved with, having a sober platform, and more so, my intention with it was really just to follow other kind of have kind of a more of a private way of following and keeping up, and then I just realized that by sharing my story, by recovering out loud, I could help someone like I used to, that was ashamed of it, and say, when I hear others like that are willing to talk about it, it was like therapy for me. Like, it's okay to talk about it, and it's okay to, like, this is part of how you heal, and this is how you get through it. And having a good sober friend, I've got a good sober friend, and so a few of them. And so when you have people that you can go to, and you can talk about it, because it's something you do have to talk about. Like, I don't know how to explain it. It's not that we just want to just talk about this, but it's something that's part of, like, healing. It helps healing, because when I hear your story and what you're experiencing, and you're hearing mine, and um, seeing what you've overcome, or what's working for you, and those are things that really can help you get through it. It's been a positive, and that's really my intention with it, is just to keep myself focused on what I need to do, and if it helps someone else along the way, I'm grateful for that, because
See,
I wish I would have done something sooner before it got to where it got.
So when you when you got out of the hospital, you started just taking your health extra seriously and getting your liver back on track without having to worry about waiting for a transplant. So how did you go about your lifestyle? What kind of things did you start doing? Some of the stuff you're talking about on Instagram and stuff, like, fill me in
Yeah.
on all that stuff, because that all
Oh,
sounds pretty
sure.
cool, and I'm sure a lot of people would find it useful.
Yeah. All I would say is, it's a different, it's called functional medicine. And so functional medicine treats the cause, not just the symptom. So instead of, a lot of times you go to the hospital and they give you a pill for this or that symptom that you have, and it's supposed to fix that symptom. But many times too, unfortunately, it leads to, like, all these other symptoms, and so then they give you another pill for that symptom. And don't get me wrong, there's a lot of really good things, and a lot of really good doctors, and they do some amazing work saving lives, and I'm not trying to knock them at all and what they do, but they're, some of the it's a different. I'm just trying to kind of contrast the two differences. And functional medicine, will kind of look for more of a natural way, letting the body kind of heal. God created us in amazing ways, and our body can heal, and we're made to to it's a wise designer that allows, your liver to start healing,
Over
um,
time. Yeah.
over time. It doesn't always happen if you do too much damage, but there's things you can do. So one of the things that was really effective was ALA infusions. That was one that there was actually a doctor at the transplant hospital we were at, because that had mentioned this, that as we were kind of at a point where we're like, what options do we have? We're gonna have to start over here, and so she had read some books on this, and she shared them with my wife, and so my wife started looking into it. She was tirelessly looking into these treatments and making phone calls, and so I was getting those infusions, and basically ALA is alpha lipoic acid. It's like a super antioxidant. It helps heal a lot of organs. It's not just good just for your liver, but it has shown a lot of positive things with the liver, then healing it. And
Okay.
it also can, there's a bunch of other things that it can do, like neuropathy, and with your nerves and stuff like that, kidneys. There's actually quite a bit, and there's a lot of information that's a lot to share. I'm willing
Yeah.
to share what worked with me. If somebody wanted to message me on Instagram or something, I
Yeah.
can get their email. I can send them some information. But that was one that was one that was really major. And then there was two doctors specifically that I worked with, and so the other one was like using a lot more natural supplements, and a lot of the things were looking at your diet too. When your liver, now one of my go-tos was like whiskey and some type of mixer that was full of high fructose corn syrup and really sugary and stuff like that. And so I'm having that. And so you got like your whiskeys and your bourbons are like some of the worst ones for you to drink is what they told me. And then you add in this mixer that's very high in sugar and high fructose corn syrup, and then you're having that in excess. That's not a good combination. And so to help your liver heal a little faster, the one thing the one doctor mentioned to me was we need to really reduce your sugar intake. We need to help your liver right now. It needs some time to heal. It needs some time, needs a break. You got to give your liver a break. So I'm like, even in the short term, like no fruit, I mean, and this is again, short term, because this is because you have a failing liver here. And so we got to get real strict for just a little bit here and let your liver have a good break. And believe me, it's not easy when you go from, just drinking is hard. Like the sugar cravings are already difficult, and then you really got to cut it out, man. That was I don't know what was worse, the sugar cravings or the alcohol cravings at some point.
I went crazy on ice cream as soon as I got sober. It was like I didn't even know I had no self-control when it came to desserts. Still to this day, I have candy under my bed like I used to hide my alcohol. It's kind of sad, actually.
Yeah, there's definitely some of that, that you still get that sweet tooth, but little things like that where you're trying to look at it and it sounds simple. Okay, some of this sounds like, okay, yeah, do that, but this is what's going to help you. So, changing your diet and I was taking a lot of supplements. There's a various number of supplements that I was recommended, and I've been, taking those and helping to detox the liver, like glutathione, and there's vitamin D. There's a lot of different vitamins that I take, and I've been taking them really regularly since I've been sick. And the results are that some of my most recent tests, which actually I got my blood work done last time was like January, and I'm not healed, but my numbers, if you saw where they were,
Yeah, like your
and
platelet levels and stuff like that.
where it is now,
Yeah.
and your liver enzymes and your all those different things, and your MELD score. My score came down, so I wouldn't even be eligible for a transplant now because it has healed. And so
Awesome.
the results, so the results are, I can't, if you talk to I've talked to some of the doctors that I've seen, and well, just because it worked for you, it's going to work for everybody. Because I've kind of said, if somebody's in this place, maybe this is what they could use to help them, well, and because it's not this FDA approved and all this sort of stuff, that they don't always, but it's like when you're at life or death and you are looking for any hope, anything that you're looking for, is there something I could try that might work? And I'm living proof that it worked for me. Will it work for you? Maybe, maybe not, but it's worth a try if you're out there like trying to figure out, because you're trying to sort out what do I do now if I can't get a liver transplant? What do I do? What options do I have?
So has that treatment been around quite a while and it was used for other reasons, but then you figured out that it was working for people that were recently alcoholics, or is it just something that was used? I mean, was it strictly originated for other reasons and then it worked for you and your liver, or how did that go?
I don't know entirely the answer to that question, other than from what the studies in that book that they have found. This was specifically covering how ALA functioned with liver, was the one book, and it's looking at all these test people that they tried it on, and like over 70% had seen improvement. Some of them almost to the point of fully recovering. And so that was enough to like, hey, let's try this. Now, it wasn't created for, it was created for, it's a product that our bodies make, I think. And I don't know all the science behind it, so I don't really want to speak about it because I don't want to misspeak about that. But all I will say is that there's a lot of things that it can do, and it's been used, when it's been, there have been others that have had success, like glutathione, and some of those things are well known for helping with detox of a liver and stuff like that.
And is this like a specific office or like a place you go into to get the treatment, or is it like something you order online, or how does that work?
Well, what you probably want to do is find a wellness clinic nearby you. The one that I saw as an independent, person that my wife, her best friend, was going to see, and a lot of we knew some people who had seen him, and not necessarily for just liver, but it just like in general health and functional medicine and that sort of thing. And so I was able to get into him from Wisconsin here. But there's like the other one I went to was Forum Health, and that's a more like of a well-known clinic that's found all over the United States, I think. Some people that I've shared that's a hospital, that you can check into. They've said, I think over in California, they said there was one nearby them. So, but like a wellness clinic, wellness way, I don't, there's other names, other chains, or other, probably independents that do, but it's pretty much, if you look for functional medicine in your area, it'd be best to see somebody and talk to somebody than, you know,
Exactly. Exactly. So when did you start to feel like the overall improvements? How long were you into the treatment to where you started to notice you're waking up every day and you're feeling like, started feeling like $1,000,000 again?
I don't know, $1,000,000, but I would say I started to see it. I did start to feel better, within, probably like 3 months into, there was little progress that was starting to see. Like, for one, I was still alive. That was a big thing because
That's always
at the
big.
time I say that tongue in cheek, but like the prognosis was, if I don't get this transplant, it might be 3, 6 months,
Yeah.
maybe a year, that if you don't do this, that you probably, you're it's not gonna go well for you. They're getting ready to have me see, I can't think of the name of it, but not hospice, but it was like the one for pain and stuff like that, to make you comfortable for your last time, make sure you're not in any pain during that time, and make you comfortable. Within 3 months, I was starting to, it was noticeable, like, hey, maybe there's some hope here, and 6 months into it, I was starting to feel a lot better. And in about 6, 7 months, that's when I started really appreciating the benefits of sobriety, was around 6 or 7 months into it. And then I started going to the gym and exercising, because at that
Awesome.
point I basically lost all my muscle, and I was skin and bones. So I had a really good friend and a personal trainer that, got me going again, and got me on
Awesome.
the path. And since then, I've just been dedicated to that, because it's like, my health is the fact that I have the second chance. Like, I want to make the most of it, and so I'm trying to do everything I can to be healthy, and try to all the work and the prayers and all the work that everyone had done for me. This is a way I can give back, is to show that I appreciate that, and I want to keep heading on the right path here, so that it makes all those weren't in vain. Those were all the efforts that everyone made to help me.
Yeah.
They're part of this process.
It sounds like you have the right support around you. And I'm sure even beyond just the physical health changes and improvements, like I'm sure a relationship with your wife and loved ones and everything, all the things around you started improving with sobriety and your health, right?
Yeah, I've seen, like I said, about 6 or 7 months into it, that's when I really started to I noticed this clarity. And that was around the time I was starting to get back to work. And I previously hadn't worked since I was like in a dependent stage. And so I'm just foggy, and you're just not, like, it messes with your head, and you're just constantly like looking at the clock, like, oh, I got to get off work here, because I got to get home.
Yeah.
And,
That's when I started feeling it, was around 6, 7 months is when like all of a sudden everything started coming together.
yeah. So that's one thing I try to mention, that because sometimes people can be a little discouraged. Like, I thought this was really great. Like, I'm 2 months into it, and I still, like,
Still feel miserable.
I'm still feeling like it's not as great as everybody's saying it. But it does hit in about 6, 7 months. Then at 8, 9 months, all of a sudden now you start to hit this pink cloud effect, and that's when it really feels awesome. And then it doesn't necessarily mean that it's just like everything's just perfect and everything. It's there's still bad days, but it's real, it's authentic, there's clarity, there's you're not like, just even time. I feel like I have so much more time, because I'm not like constantly just thinking, and I'm like wanting to get to that next drink. I'm not even thinking about it. So then it's like, I got this, I can get this done, I still get this done, I can get this done, and all of a sudden I'm way more productive. And
Way more. Yeah.
yeah, I'm
I
trying to
love that
work
part
on.
where you can actually go down a checklist every day in your head and just be like, get more done in a day than you'd get when you're drinking done in a month, you know?
Oh man, yeah. It's those little things that you don't always notice, and then you notice them
Yeah.
when I'm like, I know, like I think back, I'm working on something, I'm like, there's no way. I know there's no way I would do this right now. Like
Yeah. I know.
sometimes I've thought that.
I used to have to mentally prepare myself to do the simplest of things, like, okay, at 3 o'clock tomorrow, I'm going to go to the store, and I'd have to like hype myself up. And now it's like I can go to the store after my AA meeting, like it's nothing. It's like it's
Yep.
crazy how those little things start to like become so easy in sobriety the longer you're sober, and you start to almost like I can't take anything for granted anymore because everything was so tough back then.
Yep. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, and everyone's different with their progression on it. Like you and I, we were a lot more dependent on it, and so we really notice those
Yeah,
changes. I think more
yeah,
so than somebody who maybe doesn't have quite. But even if you're, if you really just look at it in general, the thing that's kind of been eye opening for me is learning more about alcohol and the effects that it has on you, and what it's doing to your organs, and what it's doing to your brain, and how it's going to hitting every cell of your body. And it's a type 1 carcinogen, and there's so many things I didn't really realize. I didn't want to know. I like to hear those reports about, a drink a day is really good for you, your cardiovascular health and stuff like that, or like red wine is good for, and try to focus on those articles. I kind of, wouldn't really pay attention to anything else. But it's important, I think. And I don't have no problem. I understand why people drink, and people can drink around me. I don't have no problem with. I don't judge people who are drinking. It's not for me anymore, obviously. But I do think that it's important that people know the dangers of alcohol, because I didn't really. I did not think that what happened to me in 2023 in ER. Like, I was too oblivious to that. Some people know that, yeah, I might get cirrhosis if I keep drinking like this. I didn't think about that. Like, I didn't know about it, and I just kind of was, ignorant about it, I guess. And so
yeah,
I think it's important to at least know. And I think when people start to look at it and they start to see it, they're like, man, why the heck am I drinking? Or maybe I want to cut back a little bit. I don't want to drink this much because this is not, it's not really good for me. And some
yeah.
people are really health conscious, and like they might eat really well and they exercise, but
But
yeah,
they
there's
still get
drinking.
hammered on the weekends.
And it's like, well, what do you might not, it might not be. I was working out pretty regularly at times when I was drinking and never
Same.
making progress, because your body it's taking 36 hours to get this alcohol out of your system. So
No,
like,
I've
do you really, so your body is like, okay, I got this toxin I got to get rid of right now. I can't really burn fat, so the fat's just going to have to stay, and so,
Yeah, and you don't think about those things when you're in the midst of it. You're like, I used to just run 5 miles and I'd reward myself. Even if it was at 6 a.m., I'd reward myself with a drink afterwards. And I'd be like, I'm just defeating the purpose right now, you know?
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah, trying to stay healthy while you're throwing toxins down your body. It's like, Jesus, what the hell am I doing? Like, I've started learning so many more facts about alcohol, and I'm like, Jesus, what was I doing to myself? And how did I even survive 38 years? It's like,
yeah, yeah. No kidding. I know.
yeah, it's pretty
You
frightening.
just, you just realize that you think, okay, if you drink and you're throwing up, like
Yeah,
you just got sick, like you had too much. It's like literally your body trying to protect you and save you from dying. Like, it's saying, like, we got to get this out of here now. So like, you're gonna
yeah,
you're throwing up to save your life. Your body is made. That's remarkable to me, that it's trying to protect you. It's trying to, like, hey man, we get this out of here so you can live, you can
yeah,
survive. And like that feeling, like you're, that hangover feeling is not, is like your body, you just poisoned yourself, and now it has to like fix all that and heal all that. And it's
yeah,
like, but you don't think about that when you're in it and you're drinking and stuff. It's just, these are the things I learned after the fact, and I'm kind of like, were really eye opening for me. And so I share it on my page a lot to remind myself why, even when I get that craving, like, no, I do not want to even go there because of all these reasons. But if somebody else that is fallen and trying, like, it's also maybe helps them to, or maybe they didn't realize that. Wow, I didn't realize it was a type 1 carcinogen that causes 7 types of cancer, especially breast cancer. They don't realize that. And it's promoted as this, we're going to celebrate we're going to have drinks and celebrate. And it's promoted as not like your normal drug, but yet it's killing millions of people and people that we know, probably somebody it's probably
Yeah.
affected a loved one or a friend, or it's broken up families, and
Yeah.
it's doing a lot of damage, but yet it's celebrated, and it's made to, it should, I
It is.
just,
It is so mainstream, and it's so. I mean, I'm glad now that sobriety is becoming such a popular thing, and there's so many people that are outspoken about it, and the sober community all over social media is huge now. Like, I would have never guessed it would have become so popular because alcohol is thrown in our face everywhere we look. There's liquor stores, every store we go to, mini marts, gas stations, grocery stores, commercials. It's like, okay, alcohol's everywhere, and it's a big money maker, so they're never going to take it away, I doubt. So it's always going to be thrown in our face. But now it's like, one of my guests a couple months ago was a non-alcoholic beverage brand, and it's like the way they promote the brand. It looks like you're drinking regular alcohol, but it's like it's got all the cool bottles and everything. And I'm like, oh, that's cool, but there's no alcohol in it. And for some people, I think that actually might work because you get the celebration feeling out of it, like a champagne bottle and stuff. But I mean, there's just so many different routes where you can feel like you're having fun and still socialize without alcohol. So I'm just
yeah.
it is over celebrated though, and it is thrown in our face all the time. And I think that's probably a reason that it's really tough for a lot of people to take that step to get sober, just because it's everywhere.
Yeah. Yeah, and so, yeah, you kind of have to plan that, like, those are things that you learn in the process, and I'm sure you went through it too, Ryan, is like, maybe going to a function where everyone's drinking, maybe you used to partake, and so now you have to, like, it feels like a foreign, like you're trying to figure it all out, like, how am I supposed to act? Is everyone looking, like, people look like nobody really cares what you're drinking,
No, and they
honestly,
don't care. They really
but
don't.
in your head, you're thinking
Yeah.
like, but if you plan it, maybe you bring something that you already have with you, and it doesn't have to be a big thing. You can just be like,
Yeah.
oh no, I got something here, I'm good.
Get a 7-Up with a lime in it, or just walk around with the water. And it's like, yeah, I can watch other people get, effed up at a wedding, and I can just sit back and drink my water, and nobody knows the difference. Nobody really cares.
Nobody.
Especially if you're with the right people, they're not going to care.
Exactly. Yep.
Yeah. And that's the thing. I'm sure you had to do the same, is like, we don't have to distance ourselves from everybody, but we can surround ourselves with the right supportive people, even if they know or don't know about our past when we were drinking or using. It's, I've tried to distance myself from a few people just out of choice, but like most of the people I keep around me are people that know my past and they support my sobriety, and they're not going to pressure me to do anything. So that's kind of the right way to do it, I think. But
Yeah. Yeah.
to each their own.
I think that's it's probably the best course of action, is you do have to evaluate that. And so um I'm the same way. A lot of my friends have been very supportive, and so I really wouldn't say that I've lost a lot of friends or anything like that. But but from it, because everyone respects that. But you do have to do what's right. Maybe when you're brand new and you're trying to, you know, you know, like, you think about, maybe you're a couple months into it and you're feeling really good. It's like, oh, I'm going to go to this party, and then all of a sudden, you really wanted to stop, and now being in that environment is too tempting, and you just can't resist it. And so, um,
Yeah.
if your goal is to reduce, and like maybe on a special occasion, I'm gonna, you know, if you can do that, that more power to you. But everyone's got to do what's best for them. And I've kind of come to for me, none is the way to go, but for some people, they can, handle it responsibly, and it's not affecting their life in a negative way. and maybe they start to you know, but and maybe they'll want to go sober someday, but that's their choice.
Yeah. I think even people these days that are still drinking, actively drinking, I do hear a lot of people who I've been friends with for years, even, or just random people I've met that come in and out of AA and stuff, who are still drinking, but the thoughts in their head that they want to quit. And I believe that those thoughts will lead to success at some point where they will quit, because I was the same way, where it's like, in my mid 20s, I was considering quitting, but then it evolved into I have to quit. And then it evolved into I have to do this to quit. So it's all about all
Yeah,
the steps we take, all the life trials and tribulations that take place. But I think in the end, if you need to get sober, you will get sober, as long as you might need a few wake up calls and a few rock bottoms, but that's just how it goes. But you're alive in the end. So that's what matters. And you and I are sitting here talking, and we're both, looks like, we both went to the doctor, they would tell us we're a lot healthier than we were 2 years ago.
yeah. I mean, that's the benefits is unreal. Like in the fact of like I almost felt like I aged backwards,
And the
and so
mental
like
health.
and my mental health is way better, and my clarity, and there's just there's a lot of things that you don't realize. I used to get like really flushed red. My face would just get super bright red.
Yeah.
And, anytime I drank, and which so then my face was red a lot, like most of the time, and then it would hold on for a while, and then
Yeah. And then
now
that way everybody knows you're drunk too. That's the bad part. It's like you can never hide it if you're turning red. And my eyes would get glossy and I would get red
sure,
too. So it's like, okay, well, I can't hide it anymore, even though I'm hiding it still.
right.
Yeah. I hate how that's one of my, I've talked about in other episodes, the best reward of my sobriety, I think, has been feeling like I don't have to hide anything anymore. Like just being honest in general. Like the whole hiding the drinking thing, that was only just one of the things that would I hide. I was hiding I was living two lives basically. And one of them in my drinking and the other one trying to just basically pretend I was okay. And it's like being sober, not having to hide the drinking. I don't have to hide anything anymore. It's just live a nice, trustworthy, honest life is a good feeling. So.
Yeah, you can't put it into. I couldn't have said it better. I mean, that's exactly a lot of the feelings that I have. Is just that. It's just to not have it, because it wears on you. It's like don't when you're doing that, and but yet you don't really know what to do about it.
No, I appreciate it. I'm just glad that we are here now and we're able to have this conversation and talk about it so we can help people. And is there any like kind of last advice you would like to give to anybody who's sober curious, or this whole episode you basically gave a really good gave some good options of different routes people can take in their sobriety to get healthy, not just physically but mentally. But is there any other last advice you'd like to give?
Uh, I just recently heard some great advice the other day from another sober influencer, and it sounds simple, and it's kind of kind of going theme with what we talked about already. We've mentioned it, and I think you're a great example of that. Is just start. Get even if it takes you, even if you fail, like just start getting on that path. Make it, start working towards that, because and don't be afraid of the stigma, and get the help you need. Don't be afraid to ask for help, because one of the things I found is when I was really open about it, and this is probably why I'm so open about it now, is because of the support that I got from people that I didn't expect. I expected, I wondered what they'd think, and I got an outpouring of like, "Hey, we're proud of you. Like that's great. Like I'm, here to help you." Like they aren't. There isn't that, at least to your face. Like I haven't had anything negative or that I've heard. And if they want to if somebody did say something, whatever, that's their deal. I don't,
Exactly.
there's just a lot of really good support, and
I
you
agree.
can't worry about what other people think. Just like this is your life, and it could be so much better, and you can you're missing out on your potential. Like some of your dreams when you were a kid, and what you wanted to be, and who you wanted to be. you can still do that. It's just gonna, so get started, like just start and see what happens. And
Just
if
get
it's
started.
if it's absolute sobriety, great. If that's what you need, if it's reducing the amount that you drink, great. If that's what you need, like
Yeah, exactly. You don't,
find
I
the
mean,
right path.
exactly, because it's, not everybody has to quit cold turkey for the rest of their lives. I get it. There's some people that can manage it. Just do what's best for you, Just get
Yep.
started. I think that's honestly one of the best things I've ever heard on this show. So thank you.
Yeah.
Well, Jacob, I really
Awesome.
appreciate you coming on and talking to me about it. And as you can see in the left corner to my listeners, Jacob at Feel Sober Good on Instagram. Follow him, message him if you give the green light for people to message you and ask you questions, because I think a lot of people will be curious
Yeah.
about this. So really
Yeah,
appreciate you
definitely.
coming on. Honestly, it means a lot.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Ryan, and keep up the great work with your podcast, and help letting people share their story to help others. I think it's great.
Thank you so much.
Rock Bottom with Ryan. No bullshit, just recovery.